Colts playing their ultra prevent defense on 4th and 20. Mills buying some time, fires towards the end zone, and it is caught.
What we are witnessing right now is a Hail Mary in a meaningless Week 18 game between two teams who at this point of the season are just playing for draft positioning. You would think since the Texans are in a 4th and 20 situation and a loss would help them clinch the first overall pick, the Texans would probably just bow out and take the L. Well, my friend, that is not what happened here. Not only was the Hail Mary successful, they also went for a 2-point attempt, which they got that as well, sealing the win and also losing the first overall pick in the process. But little did we know that this Hail Mary would change the trajectory of two NFL franchises, for better and for worse. But before we talk about what happened after this Hail Mary, we should discuss one of the teams playing in this game, and another team that is not involved in this game. First, let's talk about the Texans.
I introduce to you your Houston Texans.
Oh, sorry, too far back. Let's fast forward to about here. January 12th, 2020, Kansas City, Missouri, Arrowhead Stadium. The Kansas City Chiefs, led by Patrick Mahomes, are taking on the Houston Texans, led by massage enthusiast Deshaun Watson. Leading up to this game, the Chiefs were the betting favorites, but all around, most people were expecting a pretty good/tight game. But after the first quarter, it looked like it was going to be a blowout. At the end of the first quarter, the Texans scored 21 points, while the Chiefs had no answer in the first quarter. Going into the second quarter, thanks to a Kaimi Fairbairn field goal, the Texans now led by 24 points. The Chiefs would go on and score their first points of the game, and the Texans went 3-and-out on their next drive. But then, Bill O'Brien decided with his infinite wisdom to go for a fake punt, which only netted them 2 yards. And after that masterclass play calling from Bill O'Brien, the floodgates were opened. Before the fake punt, the Texans were up 24-7. After the punt, the Texans were losing 28-24 at halftime, and by the end of the game, the Texans lost 51-31. The Chiefs scored so many touchdowns that they ran out of fireworks they used to celebrate touchdowns. So, needless to say, this was an embarrassing moment for the Texans franchise. And how did they respond? By naming Bill O'Brien the new general manager. For some reason, the Texans watched Bill O'Brien cost them a chance at their first AFC title game appearance and said, "This is the man we want making roster decisions." And the very first thing Bill O'Brien did as general manager of the Texans was to make a shocking trade that sent star receiver DeAndre Hopkins to the Arizona Cardinals for a 2nd round and 4th round pick, as well as the withering remains of David Johnson. In the first 4 games of the 2021 season, the Texans went 0-4. After suffering their 4th straight loss, Bill O'Brien was promptly fired. The Texans finished the season with a 4-12 record. This would also mark the end of an era for the Texans. After the 2001 season, Deshaun Watson requested a trade, and J.J. Watt signed with the Arizona Cardinals. The next 2 seasons were forgettable ones as the Texans were in rebuild mode, so all of this leads to this moment right here. And also, there's another thing we have to talk about in this game, and that is the head coach of the Texans, Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith was the defensive coordinator under former head coach David Culley in the 2021 season. At the end of the season, David Culley was fired after 1 year, and the Texans had to find a new coach. Initially, it looked like the Texans were going to hire journeyman quarterback Josh McCown to be their new head coach, but they decided to pivot away from that because the backlash would have probably been immense. So they decided to promote Lovie Smith to head coach. Lovie Smith's record for the 2022 season was 2-13-1, and the Texans looked primed for a potential first overall pick until, a lot of people were insinuating Lovie Smith won the last game on purpose. Reason 1. It's kind of funny to imagine Lovie Smith giving the bird to the Texans in his final game. And also why I'm bringing it up is to talk about another team in the story that he used to coach that benefited from this win. And that is the Chicago Bears.
The Bears. The Bears.
Like the Houston Texans, the Chicago Bears were also going through a rebuild. This was the first season under new head coach Matt Eberflus, as he was replacing former coach Matt Nagy. The Matt Nagy era started off on a pretty good note. In Matt Nagy's first season, the Bears went 12-4 and won the NFC North title thanks to a somewhat improving Mitchell Trubisky and their number 1 ranked defense led by Khalil Mack. In their first home playoff game since 2010, the Bears faced off against the Eagles and we all know what happened. And that was the only high point of the Matt Nagy era, as the team peaked early and was pretty bad / underwhelming for the rest of his time there. Besides making the playoffs again as a 7 seed, no one really talks about that. They also got a new franchise quarterback in Justin Fields after the Bears seemed to realize that Mitch Kissantidis was not franchise quarterback material. In Matt Eberflus's first season as head coach, the team went 3-14, which is kind of expected for a new head coach and a rebuilding team. But the plus side is, Justin Fields was starting to flash some of his talent, and thanks to the Texans, the Bears were able to clinch the first overall pick. So now that the Bears have the first overall pick, they have all the leverage in the world to make a move if they wanted to. But who in the world would pay a steep price just to take the first overall pick?
There has been a trade for the number 1 overall pick, the Carolina Panthers and the Chicago Bears making a deal. For more on that, let's bring in NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport.
And here is our final team of this story, the Carolina Panthers. The 2022 season for the Carolina Panthers was an interesting one. The Panthers started off the year with a 1-4 record and fired head coach Matt Rule 3 years into his 7-year deal. They also traded away star running back Christian McCaffrey for practically nothing. By all means, the Panthers season should have ended right there, but after S.W.A.K became the interim head coach, the Panthers finished the year with a 7-10 record and also had a chance to win the NFC South title, which says a lot about the NFC South. Hopefully something like this doesn't happen next season. Sadly, the Panthers lost the final game of the year to the Bucs. Despite the loss, this was a pretty encouraging sign. The Panthers needed a direction for the rebuild since Matt Rule was fired, and the Sam Darnold experience was going well for about 3 games. So instead of making S.W.A.K the new head coach, they decided to go in a different direction by hiring former Colts head coach Frank Reich. With a new coach, that means a new quarterback. If only there was a way to fix this issue. And that's when Panthers GM Scott Fitterer had an idea.
I've got an idea!
The Panthers traded the number 9 overall pick, the number 61 overall pick in 2023, a first round pick in 2024, a second round pick in 2025, and star receiver DJ Moore. The Panthers were now poised to pick a new franchise quarterback. Heading into the 2022 NFL draft, there was a lot of talk about who would be the first quarterback taken off the board. It was between Alabama's Bryce Young, Ohio State's CJ Stroud, and Florida's Anthony Richardson, or maybe even Kentucky's Will Levis. It looked like the Panthers were going to draft CJ Stroud when this video from CJ Stroud's pro day showed Stroud talking to Panthers head coach Frank Reich and also owner David Tepper, and also it was reported the Panthers took CJ Stroud to dinner. But come draft time, the Panthers would end up drafting Bryce Young first overall, and the Texans would take CJ Stroud second overall. And this is where our two franchises take 2 different directions.
And now, can they win it? Stroud to the end zone, touchdown, Tank Dell!
To say CJ Stroud had a good rookie year is an understatement. CJ Stroud threw for 4,108 yards, 23 touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions. He also helped the Texans to a 10-7 record and a AFC South title. The Texans would go on and beat the Browns in the wildcard round before losing to the Ravens in the divisional round. Besides the loss to the Ravens, the Texans' future looks bright as ever. However, for the Panthers, their season went in a very different direction. The Panthers finished with a league-worst 2-15 record and also fired head coach Frank Reich in his first year in Carolina. Bryce Young struggled in his rookie year thanks to not having a very good O-line or somewhat decent weapons to throw to. Well, the bright side is that since they finished with the worst record, they surely can get the first overall pick now, right? Oh, that's right. Thanks to Scott Fitterer trading a king's ransom to move up in the draft, this means the Panthers do not have a first rounder, and their first rounder now belongs to the Bears. They could have gotten a draft pick for this year's draft from the Rams' proposed trade for pass rusher Brian Burns, but the Panthers rejected it. They later on ended up trading Brian Burns to the Giants for a mere pittance of what the Rams were offering. So to recap, the Texans' future looks bright with their new franchise cornerstones in C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson Jr., while the Panthers' rebuild looks like it's going to be even longer than before. And also, the Bears are most likely going to be drafting their new franchise quarterback in Caleb Williams. And to think, this ripple effect of change to 3 different NFL franchises only happened because of a fateful Hail Mary down in Indy. Anyway guys, thanks for watching, subscribe, leave a like down below, like for more videos, and I'll see you guys later.